Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for November 7th, 2024. For those of you who are bothered by my raspy voice, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. I have a touch of laryngitis, but I feel it's very important to get these updates out, so bear with me. I want to address some musings I have about the election that just passed and look at the responsibility that we as citizens have and the potential we have now to make change. I mean, some of you are wildly enthusiastic about the Trump victory. Others of you, and probably not too many of my viewers, but some of you may be deeply depressed. Well, the wildly enthusiastic versus the depression, that's a sign of polarization. Then there are many others who are just nervous, don't know what to expect, aren't sure how to think about it. Well, there's a reason for all these kinds of reactions. Donald Trump is unpredictable. He is who he is. We've seen it before. The question is, what can we do to make sure that we have the changes that are needed for our country? Now, let me start with those of you who are enthusiastic. Join us to help set the course for this administration. With Trump, we may see some interesting changes and necessary changes, starting with end the wars in Ukraine and Israel. End them. He said he would end the Ukraine war. He said the war in the Middle East should end as quickly as possible. Let's get them over with. Pull out support from the United States for these wars, and the wars will stop. You look at the situation in Israel now where there's very significant chaos with Netanyahu firing the defense minister. There's no peace plan in place. Blinken is going to keep going into the Middle East and not solve anything. So put an end to it. Cut off the funding. Stop sending weapons to both countries. We need a full break from the hypocrisy of the Biden-Blinken administrations. Second point, the economy. Go with LaRouche's 4 laws. We should recognize that the existing economic policy has been a failure. What's needed, the LaRouche 4 laws start with re-regulation of banking. No more bailouts of the too-big-to-fail banks. Secondly, go with a national credit policy. Not from private banks, but where necessary from government credit. The credit should go into especially infrastructure, but also into areas of scientific discovery to bring online new technologies that are based on the breakthroughs in science and technology. Now, the important thing about the no more bailouts is that we have to take power away from the corporate cartels and the private banks. That's what the so-called deep state operates on, the control of finance, and the fact that it's private money, private interests that are served rather than the general welfare. One other aspect on the economy, cooperate with the BRICS. This is an obvious one. End corporate neo-colonial policy. With the global South, the countries that want to develop, we should be there for you and with you. Not because we want to compete with China, but because the US and China and Russia and Europe have a stake in investing in improving the conditions of life in the rest of the world. That's a peace policy, peace through development. And one final point on the economics, no green transition. It's fake science. It's not a solution. If there are indications that temperatures are getting warmer, well, we need more power, not less. We don't need less energy flux density. We should instead be investing in bringing online nuclear fusion, for example. Now, for those of you who are depressed, recognize that you're depressed because you're part of the privileged elite class. Get into the real world. Now stop crying into your champagne glasses. Look, whether liberals, neocons, or neoliberals, Your system has failed, but you don't know it because you're living comfortably. But you're living comfortably while the growing numbers in the population, the vast majority of the population on the planet, are suffering from the effects of war and poverty and injustice. Why should you be isolated or insulated from that? So I have to say I have no sympathy for the Rachel Maddows or the Morning Joes and his little Brzezinski sidekick. The role of media is one of the problems. The media and think tanks. Those are both part of the military, industrial, financial complex. And they're involved in censorship and brainwashing. So if you are finding yourself angry about Trump and think something has to be done with it, you're probably part of the problem. And I would encourage you to read Matt Taibbi's column, who addressed this. It's titled "Giant Electoral Asteroid Strikes America's Intellectual Class, Which Fails to Notice." Very funny and very interesting insights from Taibbi. Now, for the rest of the population, reality has struck. That's good. The Biden administration was not real. It was imposed from the outside. It was imposed by the same people who brought in Barack Obama to have the government function as a surrogate for the interests of the corporate cartels and the globalists. What Helga Zepp-LaRouche said in looking at this period is, look, it's our time. We can make fundamental changes, necessary changes. So get active. Join us to educate others. Now, when I criticize the passivity of the population or call on people to do more, get involved, don't be demoralized, I'm not berating you. I'm trying to inspire you to act, because the solution to these crises is an active citizenry. There's a tremendous untapped potential out there in the American and Western European population. Many people have withdrawn. They're not employing their minds to help solve the problems. Then they're just reacting negatively to what's going on around them. Well, many of you know that there's something wrong. Something has to be done. The question is what to do. We'll begin with our daily update. I do this every day, 5 days a week, to not just give you the headlines, but to try to provoke you to think of what's behind the headlines. Who's doing what to whom? How do we change it? Secondly, you can subscribe to the Executive Intelligence Review, an absolutely essential journal that's been around for 50 years now. And then finally, join the Friday weekly International Peace Coalition Zoom calls. There'll be one tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. This is where you get the solutions, because we're working with people around the world who are involved in putting forward solutions. So the elections happen, things are going to change. If you're a little uncomfortable, that's okay, because the comfort was based on a fallacy that things can continue as they were. They can't. But the American people responded. The Trump victory is a very significant victory. It's very big. And now we see that people want to change. The main reason people voted for Donald Trump is they didn't want more of the same. They didn't buy the line that Biden solved our problems and that Harris would be better. So join with us. Let's create a real alternative and do something that you can be proud of for the rest of your life and for your children and grandchildren's lives.